Shalom, brothers and sisters. Grace, mercy, and peace be unto you from Yahuwah the Father and Yahusha our Mashiach, his voice. Hear, O Yahshua, Yahuwah our mighty one, he is one Yahuwah. This is Brother David coming to you again to ask, who is God? And this is part 3. Well, thanks to Brother O'Neill, we know who he is now. We know his full name. We did not know it before. It is God Ra'el. The same way that we say Yahuwah. And in short, we say Yah, his people, Satan's people, God Ra'el's people. In short, they say God. We have to delete that from our speech altogether. You may also be asking a question about this image. Why does Brother David attach this image to Satan, to God Ra'el? Well, this image represents those who were called the Anunnaki. And Anunnaki simply means this: those who from the heavens came. We should know that by now. Did you know that the Anunnaki is also in the Bible? The Father told us to wipe out the children of Anak, Anakim. They were in the promised land, brothers and sisters, his seed. Then we look at this image and we say, how can this image be the serpent or the dragon or the devil or Lucifer? Well, brothers and sisters, those who have led us and taught us have taught us nothing but foolishness. If you serve this God here, God Ra'el, you will do everything in your power to make him beautiful above everything else in existence, because he is different. Now, I told you before that the paleontologists have found that there were serpents. They were dinosaurs. They had feathers. They were related to birds. Look at this image. This is a fossilized image that they found in stone. Looks familiar? This would be a feathered and flying serpent. There's so much that we do not know. That's why you can't close your ears when you hear something new and start doubting right away. No. Check, double check, triple check everything. You'll find the truth, brothers and sisters. Now, just like we don't know anything about this, I'm going to show you something else we don't know. We know nothing about the scriptures, about the book, about creation. Do you know those Anunnaki, those who came from the heavens, they took credit for creation. They even took credit for creating man. They took credit for the flood. Now, how can they do that? Is there any truth behind that? Yes, there is. And we need to go to the scriptures for evidence. Let's begin. In the Blue Letter Bible, it gives you a lot of tools for you to use. For example, the tool that we'll use today is that we're going to take the English text right alongside the Hebrew text. How do we get here? If you look up top, it says verse or words. You type in Genesis chapter 1, and you see next, KJV is chosen. Then you hit the navigation button, and it's going to go to the English text for Genesis chapter 1. Then you see where it says Strong's. You have to check that box, and then you will get all of your H numbers that you see here. The H stands for Hebrew. Remember, our book was written in Hebrew, not Greek, not Latin, not Aramaic, Hebrew. Why do they want to dismiss with the Hebrew text and try to tell you that it's Aramaic? Because their job was to wipe us out from existence, that our name shall be heard of no more in the land, nor the name of our Father. Did they succeed? Yes, they have succeeded. But what they feared the most is that we would awaken and expose all their lies. Let's begin exposing some lies here. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God, look at the number, H430, created the heaven and the earth. Verse 2. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God, H430, moved upon the face of the waters. Verse 3. And God, H430, said, Let there be light. And there was light. Verse 4. And God, H430, saw the light that it was good, and God, H430, divided the light from the darkness. Verse 5. And God, H430, called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. We have to see what H430 represents. Do you see where it says lexicon? Then it says Strong's. Then it has the number H430. What is the word? Elohim. Come down to the bottom. The KJV translates Strong's H430 in the following manner. God, 2,346 times. So in your book, every time you see Elohim, God is there. Then you have lowercase God, 244 times. Judge, 5 times. God, capital G, capital O, capital D, 1 time. Goddess, 2 times. Great, 2 times. Mighty, 2 times. Angels, 1 time. Exceeding, 1 time. Godward with H4136, 1 time. And godly, 1 time. Scroll down the page, and you come to Strong's definitions. Do you see the Hebrew script? Hebrew reads from right to left. We're going to translate or transliterate this name for ourselves. You see they have Elohim there, and they provided for you the phonetic breakdown. You see El, O, Him. Let's see what we get. The first letter is an Aleph. How is it pronounced? Ah. Ah. It can also be pronounced eh. Eh. All right, the second letter is a lamed. How is it pronounced? La. La. And the third letter is considered to be a hey. How is it pronounced? Ha. Ha. Okay, we're going to put these three letters together. The ah, or the eh, speaks for itself. Now we're going to deal with the lamed and the hey. We're going to put our vowel in between, which is an ah sound. And guess what we come up with? Allah. Isn't that amazing? Or Elah. It's not a stretch, brothers and sisters. Do you remember in part 2, we went through Islam and they call their mighty one Allah, Elah, Elaha. So it's not such a stretch to get Allah from the first three letters. So let's deal with the fourth letter. The fourth letter is a yod. How is it pronounced? Yeah. Yeah. And the fifth letter is a mem. How is it pronounced? Meh. 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 Okay, so we're going to put those two letters together with an ah sound in between the yod and the mem, and what do we have? Yam. Now, how did they get Elohim? I have no idea. This is why we must learn this process for ourselves. They're coming from a hard speech. Who taught them this? The Jews. What language do they speak? Yiddish. What is Yiddish? A German dialect. It's not Hebrew. And they're teaching us how to pronounce these words. Let's go through the definition. Elohim is plural of H433. Gods in the ordinary sense, but specifically used in the plural, thus especially with the article of the supreme God. What they're trying to convey to you here in this definition is that there is a supreme, mighty one over all of them, occasionally applied by way of deference to magistrates, and sometimes as a superlative, angels, exceeding, God, gods, goddess, godly, very, great, judges, and the last one is mighty. If you go through the Hebrew chart, the ancient Hebrew chart, you will find that the aleph means mighty, strong, power. Now come down where it says Jacinius, Hebrew Chaldee Lexicon. Do you see the Hebrew scripts that are there? There are 3. Now look at the first one. Aleph, Lamed, Hey. Allah. Look at the second one. Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yad, Mem. What was that? Alayam or Elayam. Look at the last one. Aleph, Lamed, Wu or Wa, and Hey. What is that together? Aluwa. Aluwa. The definite article. The supreme power. You see that H433? Aluwa. Let's continue. Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. You see on the top, I put the phonetic spelling, Allah Yam, Elah Yam. That is the way that I have transliterated the word. I would like for you to try for yourself to see what you get. Don't try to make anything up. Just follow the rules of engagement, and let's see what you get. Now let me say something before we start reading chapter 2. In Genesis chapter 1, the name Yahuwah does not appear even one time. It is not even mentioned. The only ones who are mentioned are the Elohim, Elohim. I'm going to use Elohim because that is what we're used to, so we don't get confused. Verse 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished and all the host of them. Verse 2. And on the seventh day, God, H430, we know that's the Elohim now, right? Ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. Note, it tells you that the Elohim ended his work. Who's the his? Who is the he? His name is Yahuwah, the supreme power of the Elohim. So it's speaking here about the mighty one who is giving instructions to the Elohim. Do you understand? Verse 3. And God, H430, that's the Elohim, blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he, there he is again, had rested, ceased from activity, from all his work, which God, H430, which is the Elohim, created and made. Who's on top? The he. He instructed his laborers to do these things. Now here, Genesis chapter 2, verse 4, enters the name of the master of the universe, the supreme power of the Elohim. These are the generations of the heavens of the earth when they were created in the day that the Lord, H3068, God, H430, made the earth and the heavens. Who does the Lord represent? And remember the number, H3068. All right, we're at the lexicon again. Strong's H3068 represents Yahuwah. Do you see the Hebrew script there? Yahuwah. They have Yehovah, but we know it as Yahuwah. Scroll down the page. You come to the definitions. You see the Hebrew script? Hebrew reads from right to left. What do they have next to it? Yehovah. All right, let's transliterate this name for ourselves. We all know this, so we can just breeze right through it. The first letter is a yod. It is pronounced yah. The second letter is a called, a hey. How is it pronounced? Ha. You put those two together with an ah sound, your vowel in between, you have yah. The third letter, they call it a wah, but it's really a woo, ooh, woo. And the fourth letter is considered to be a hey. You put your woo and your hey together, you have hoo, wah, hoo, wah. Let's put it all together. What do we have? Yahuwah. Now look what they have. Jehovah. Let's read the definition from H1961, the self-existent or eternal Jehovah. You see Jehovah there? It is the Jewish name of God. Can you use that? You cannot. This is the Jewish national name of God. Has nothing to do with the Hebrews. Has to do with Yiddish. Has to do with the people who are converted to Judaism. So that is their national name of God. Who is God? God Ra-El. Look what it says next. Jehovah, the Lord. The Lord equals Adonai. Adonai equals Baal. Who do they want you to serve? You have the correct name in the Hebrew script, but then they want you to serve their God, who is Jehovah. All right, let's just have a quick lesson here. There's no J in Hebrew. First letter is a Yod. Look, they have a V there. There's no V in Hebrew. It replaces the Wu or the Wa as we know it. Walk away from these names. They're telling you exactly who the name was created for. It was not created for you. Verse 7. And the Lord, H3068, we know who H3068 is now. His name is Yahuwah. You see what they put in his place? The Lord. They covered up his name with Baal. God, H430, we know that is the Elohim. Let's put the proper translation here to show how it should have been written. And Yahuwah, the supreme power of the Elohim, formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So the Elohim didn't do this. Yahuwah himself breathed the Ruach into the nostrils of man and gave him life. Verse 8. And the Lord, H3068, God, H430, let's translate it properly now, and Yahuwah, the supreme power of the Elohim, planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. Verse 9. And out of the ground made the Lord, H3068, we know that's Yahuwah, God, H430, we know that's the Elohim, let's translate it properly, and out of the ground made Yahuwah, the supreme power of the Elohim, to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life, also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Verse 10. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became into 4 heads. Let's drop down to verse 21. And the Lord, H3068, God, H430, I'm trying to get you familiar with the numbers. H3068 is Yahuwah. H430 is the Elohim. How should it be properly translated? And Yahuwah, the supreme power of the Elohim, caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam. And he slept, and he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. Verse 22. And the rib which the Lord, H3068, God, H430, Let's read it correctly. And the rib which Yahuwah, the supreme power of the Elohim, had taken from man, made he a woman and brought her unto the man. Ladies, who was the first person to give birth? And he had a C-section. Adam. On Mother's Day, I'm looking for my gift. Verse 23. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of the man. Verse 24. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. Let me stop here for a moment. In marriage, there is no mommy's boys. When you marry that woman, she is first. Your mother comes second. You do not put your mother or your father above your wife. Verse 25. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Genesis chapter 3. And we're going to start from verse 3. But first, what have we learned so far? They put the Lord in the book. Then we know that H3068 represents Yahuwah. Then they put God. And the number next to God is H430. It speaks of the Elohim. It's in the plural form. So when you're reading the book, how do you convey this thought? You would say Yahuwah, the supreme power of the Elohim. Keep that in mind, brothers and sisters. This is very important. You're going to see this throughout the scriptures, and every time you see it, if you uncover it, you're going to say, wow, I did not know. But here in chapter 3, everything is about to make a turn. Watch this. Verse 3. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God, H430, which is the Elohim, have said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. Who conveyed this command to Adam? It was the Elohim. Do you see how active they were in creation? And they were also the messengers of Yah. So it is true. The Elohim were responsible for creating the heavens and the earth. They were also had a part in creating man. But who gave them the instructions? The supreme power, brothers and sisters. These are things we did not know. Because we're reading their English translations, and you will go into error. Have you ever heard before? There was a movie, Lost in Translation. This is Lost in Translation and Lost in Transliteration. Verse 4. And the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. Was the serpent telling her the truth? It was a half-truth, which means it was a lie. There's two forms of death. As soon as she ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, she died immediately. The first death is a spiritual death, separation from Yahuwah. For example, you who are dead in your sins and trespasses. In other words, it's saying you who are separated from Yahuwah because of your sins. So your first death is separation from the Mighty One. What is the second death? Your ability to relate to the material realm was taken away. So as soon as Eve ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, she was dead spiritually. Verse 5. For God, H430, who is that? The Elohim. For the Elohim doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods. You shall be like the Elohim, H430, knowing good and evil. Verse 6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired, to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. Verse 8. And they heard the voice of the Lord, H3068, God, H430. What is the proper translation? And they heard the voice of Yahuwah, the supreme power of the Elohim, walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahuwah, the supreme power of the Elohim, amongst the trees of the garden. Verse 9. And the Lord, H3068, that represents Yahuwah. God, H430, that represents the Elohim. How should it have been translated? And Yahuwah, the supreme power of the Elohim, called unto Adam and said unto him, Where art thou? Verse 10. And he said, who said? Adam said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. Verse 11. And he said, who said? Yahuwah. Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee that thou should not eat thereof? Do you see he always asks questions that he already knows the answers to? I've used that strategy. Matter of fact, I use it every day. My family members are afraid to give me false information because they know I already know, so they might as well fess up. Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. I know you're probably saying, why is he going through all of these passages and constantly pointing out the numbers? It's going to start to come together. We're getting ready to make a turn here in chapter 4. I want you to pay attention to what I'm going to show you. Verse 1. And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived, and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. H3068. Hey, H430 is not present here. Why is that? Because there's worship happening now. There's praise. There's glory being given unto Yahuwah. Do you understand? The Elohim, they work for him. But all glory, all praise goes to Yahuwah. He will not share his praise with another. This verse tends to suggest that Adam and Eve understood this. Verse 2. And she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of the sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. Verse 3. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought forth of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. H3068. Stop. Who do your offerings go to? Unto Yahuwah, the supreme power of the Elohim. But as you see, the Elohim are not mentioned here at all. So your offerings are to be given unto Yahuwah and Yahuwah alone. Verse 4. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And the Lord, H3068, had respect unto Abel and to his offering. Who picks and chooses whose offering is more acceptable? Do you see the Elohim here? The only person present is H3068, and his name is Yahuwah. Okay, so from the beginning, verse 1, all praise goes to Yahuwah. Verse 3, your offerings go unto Yahuwah. Verse 4, Yahuwah is the one who chooses which offering is more acceptable. Let's drop down to verse 26. And to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then men began to call upon the name of the Lord. H3068. What is the name? Yahuwah. So when Enos was born, men began to call upon the name of Yahuwah. Did they call on Elohim? Did they call on God, Lord, Jehovah, Jesus, any of that stuff? There's only one name given amongst men that you can be saved by, brothers and sisters. And that name is Yahuwah. There is no other name under the sun that you can call upon. Every other name besides this one, if you call upon those names, you will find your bed in the lake of fire. Genesis chapter 5, verse 1. This is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God, H430, created man, in the likeness of God, H430, made he him. Okay. Who is H430? The Elohim. Whose likeness were we created in? The Elohim. Do you remember in Genesis, Yahuwah said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. So we have different groups. We have the cherubim, plural. You have the seraphim, plural. There's other groups too. And you have the Elohim, plural. He spoke to the Elohim. He said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let him have dominion over the earth. Verse 2. Male and female created he them. Let's stop for a second. Who's the he? Verse 1, it says, of God made he him. In verse 2, it says, male and female created he them. Who is he? Yahuwah. He is present. Even though he's sitting upon the throne, he is still present. He has dominion over the universe. And the Elohim work for Yahuwah. Male and female created he them, and blessed them and called their name Adam in the day when they were created. Who blessed them? Yahuwah. Verse 3. And Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness, after his image. So this son must have looked just like him, and called his name Seth. Verse 4. And the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begot sons and daughters. Do you see the word begot? To beget means to have sex. When you read in John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, it's dealing with sex. Why would they put that in your book? It does have some truth. Who came down from heaven and had sex with the daughters of men? The Elohim and the Seraphim. Let's go to chapter 6. Genesis, chapter 6, verse 1. We went through all of that, brothers and sisters. There is a method to my madness. I got you familiar with the numbers. Every number that you learn is going to come into play here. If you were not paying attention from before, then you're going to be lost now. I kept repeating those numbers so you could get it in your head who these numbers are speaking about. Verse 1. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them. Now we're going through the same account that was in the book of Tanakh, chapter 69. Verse 2. That the sons of God, H430, saw the daughters of men, that they were fair. Could we stop here? If you read this and you put, instead of God, you put that the sons of the Elohim saw the daughters of men, that they were fair. Did the Elohim have sons? Not that I know of. This is when they first fell. This is when they first observed the daughters of men frolicking in the garden, and they lusted after them. So what does this mean, the sons of God? Have they actually put in the text in Genesis chapter 6, verse 2, that these sons of God were the fallen ones, the Elohim that aligned themselves with the seraphim that rebelled against Yahuwah? If they're on God Ra'el's team and he's their head, then they are considered to be his sons now, because they were in rebellion against Yahuwah. Are they actually telling us the truth in verse 2? Let me read it again for you. That the sons of God Ra'el saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Does that agree with chapter 69 of Tanakh? Verse 3. And the Lord, H3068, You see, the two are separated now. The Elohim are separated from Yahuwah. They transgressed his laws. They were written on the tablets of stone in heaven, not to mix with the daughters of men. And the Lord, H3068, and Yahuwah said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. We fell with the Elohim. We were cursed because of them. Our lifespan was shortened. Verse 4. There were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God Ra'el, H430, the Elohim, came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Giants, brothers and sisters. Verse 5, and God, H3068, saw the wickedness of man. Hold it. Something's wrong. Let's go back. Let's read that again. In capital G, capital O, capital D. What is the number there? H3068. Doesn't H3068 represent Yahuwah? How did capital G, capital O, capital D come here to replace the master of the universe? Look, it's all caps, brothers and sisters. That means he's above all. God is above Yahuwah. Who did this? Your translator. Are they your friends? They are your enemies. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. That's how they want you to read it. Verse 6. And it repented the Lord, H3068, that he had made. Hold it. Let's go back. Let's go back again. There's H3068 again. What name does H3068 represent? Yahuwah. But what do they have there in his place? Capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. The Lord. Do you know what the Lord represents? Adonai. You know what Adonai and the Lord mean? Baal. So they have replaced Yahuwah with God, short for God Ra'el, and the Lord, short for Baal. And guess who Baal speaks of, as we learned in part 2? Baal is God. God is Baal. Look at what they've done. They laid a trap for you that you can never come out of unless you have the spirit of Yahuwah. Now, do you see how you know whether you have the spirit or not? You can discern. You can find and see through all of their lies. So if you call on God, they got you. lake of fire, here I come. If you call on the Lord, they got you again. If you call on Allah, they got you again. If you call on Jehovah, the Jewish national name of God, they told you it's the national name of God, they got you again. If you call on Jesus, Jesus is the Son of God. He was begotten by God who is the Lord, who is Baal, and Jesus is the son of Baal. What a mess. Who did this again? Your translators. How did we get to this point? The Ruach, the Spirit of Yahuwah. Do you see what I mean, Brother O'Neill? How the Spirit flows from one to another, to another, to another. Verse 7. And the Lord, H3068 said, let's stop. H3068 represents who? Yahuwah. Let's read it right. And Yahuwah said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast and creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. All right? When Eve had a son, her first son, who did she give praise to? Yahuwah. When those sons were full grown and they gave their offerings, who did they offer them up to? Yahuwah. When they offer them up, who picks and chooses which one is more acceptable? Yahuwah. When it comes to judgment, who is the one who hands down judgment? Yahuwah. You see, no H430 in none of the places that I have just mentioned. Verse 8. But Noach found grace in the eyes of the Lord. H3068. And whose name is that? Yahuwah. Let's read it again. But Noach found grace in the eyes of Yahuwah. Do you remember when we first looked up the definitions of the Elohim and they said capital G, capital O, capital D only appears one time in the KJV? We have discovered the one time, haven't we? And the time that it appears, it replaces the name of the master of the universe. Do you see that? This must have been so important to the translator, so important to put his God, the name of the one he serves, in our book, that he did it over 2,600 times, but one time he put it as all caps, which means that he is the name that is above all names. Do you see that? Who did it again? Your translator. What did your Bible tell you? That all your enemies shall be found liars. Are you starting to see that the Father was giving you some jewels here? All right. Let me give you another observation, just so that you can see how crazy I really am. We started from Genesis. And you should go through each verse, line by line. I went from Genesis 1 to Genesis 6. Each verse. Guess what I discovered? The transliteration has to come from Hebrew. The Hebrew word for God is Gam and Dalet. Those are the Hebrew letters, Gam and Dalet. How is the Gam pronounced? Ga. How is the Dalet pronounced? Da. You put your vowel in between, which is Ah. And what do you have? God. Have you seen an H number for the Gam and the Dalet? Any place in all of the texts that we have read? It is not a part of the text. Someone had an agenda. They put the name of a rebel in your book. They love rebels, don't they? Look here in America, we're tearing down statues now, right? Don't you see it on TV? Half of the country are angry because they're tearing down the statues of their heroes. They put their hero here in the book. His name is God. God Ra'el. And he has replaced Yahuwah. See how crazy this is? This is what they do. Replace. 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 For the first time, you have an academic study. These are the things that people don't like to do. They like to be entertained. You have to study, else you'll be destroyed. Because there's only one name under the sun given amongst men that you can be saved by. Wouldn't it be prudent for you to seek it out for yourself? And that name is Yahuwah. And our enemies have taken him out of the book over 7,000 times and replaced him with God and the Lord, Jehovah, Jesus, Allah. But they all come back to a general head, God Ra'el. If you want to be saved, there's only one name under the sun given amongst men that you can be saved by. And his name is Yahuwah, the supreme power of the Alayam. Continue to part 4. Shalom.